Happy Thursday, everybody. Welcome to Bearcats Daily. I am your host, Blake Thornton. Appreciate you tuning in today. I was out driving around, went down to the city the other day, and I started seeing billboards of UC linemen making pancakes. Now, I had not seen this viral video yet, so I just thought they were advertising something for one of the sponsors or maybe Kroger's, something for the team. I didn't know we were just literally making pancakes as linemen do both on and off the field. And I just thought it was the funniest thing ever. Wound up watching the video before I got out of my car. And I got to say, that was so well done. It was absolutely awesome. And I like seeing linemen getting time in the spotlight because, as we discussed yesterday, linemen are the most underrated position in all of football, and they never get talked about enough. So I love seeing linemen take over in terms of being, getting their own videos and getting to do stuff, off the field because they earn it. You go in every play and get your head bashed in. I mean, look at Jason Kelsey. Literally would lay at the bottom of a pile of 20 guys 4 or 5 times a game, just getting the crap beat out of him on the bottom of the pile. And yeah, granted, he's doing stuff outside of it, but still, love seeing this for our linemen getting to do that. It is absolutely awesome to see. Hopefully, they bring it to the field this season. For those of you who don't know, a pancake obviously is when an offensive lineman is able to, while blocking, without holding him, taking a defensive lineman to the ground, running him over, and flat on his back like a pancake. Absolutely cool to see. Very, just way too funny. Just to be driving along the highway and then a billboard pops up with those guys holding pancakes. I absolutely love it, and I really do hope that they will do more stuff like that because it was so cool to see. As we know, with this offensive line, we are returning 3 starters this year. We did have a couple guys leave. Obviously, our center, Gerhardt, going into the draft. He was drafted in the 7th round, for those of you remember that. Was drafted to Minnesota as 7th overall, so we will have to replace our starting center. Now, with that being said, still returning 3 absolute key pieces on this team. Obviously, you have left tackle Joe Cotton will be coming back, and his left guard, the preseason All-American, Evan Tingesdahl. The center is probably going to be Zach Taylor. I would expect him to be our starting center this year. I like the kid. I think he's a solid player. Maybe a slight step back from Gerhardt, but obviously getting an NFL draft caliber center that leaves, it's going to be tough to, replace those guys. So nothing to bash about. I think Zach will do a great job. I have all the faith in the world in our offensive line coach there, as we all should, for what he's done with that offensive line. Should not be any issues there at center for Zach Taylor. Right guard, Teron Tayo, returning this year. He'll anchor the strong side for the quarterback. And then right tackle is kind of up in the air. There'll be a position battle, but I do expect Jake Wheelock to be the one that takes over that position as well. And, we talk about line and positions. The right side of the line being on the visual side for the quarterback, typically. If you get a left-handed quarterback, it kind of changes. But I do expect Jake to have a solid play over at right tackle. Obviously, with Teron next to him at guard to kind of help him out a little bit with that veteran knowledge of playing every down. That's going to benefit whoever they put there. But like I said, I think Jake will be the one that goes in. I do expect big things from this offensive line. Last year in 2025, 8 sacks were allowed, which we're removing Army from this because they did not throw enough passes to qualify technically. So that was the fewest in the NCAA. 8 sacks allowed in a season was the fewest in the NCAA. And that's impressive in just the fact that in college, remember, there's a lot more play stoppages. The games take longer. There's more plays run. So there's more opportunity. So 8 sacks in a long season. Absolutely incredible. No complaints whatsoever. You really can't ask for much more in terms of the pass protection from an offensive line than that right there. So do I expect them to do that again this year? Yes. Do I expect them to lead the NCAA again? Not necessarily the case. I think anything under 12 sacks or less is just an absolute stunning success for the team. That I think would be a solid number. 12 or less is what we're looking for that season. Also, they gave up the fewest tackles for loss in the NCAA. 43 tackles for loss was the fewest in all of NCAA last year. Again, incredible numbers there. That means our line was getting off the football, driving guys downfield on run plays before they were able to get to the running back. So, granted, it still happened 43 tackles for loss, but being the fewest, that means our line was winning in the trenches. Such a valuable part of football is the trenches. Actually, I think it's the biggest part of football. Now, obviously, being Cincinnati fans, if you know anything about the city and the history, we have seen some of the best offensive linemen in history come through Cincinnati. And yes, I am referring to the GOAT tackle of all time, Anthony Munoz. One of the other, the fact that he's not in the Hall of Fame yet is an absolute travesty. Willie Anderson came through Cincinnati. And then, of course, most recently, Andrew Whitworth, who I think is still one of the greatest linemen of his generation and probably of all time. So Cincinnati knows a little bit about linemen, and we've seen some of the best plays. So when we look at these guys coming in for this team, Hall of Fame, we'll pump the brakes there at least. But these are some of the best linemen that we've had come through UC ever. We're producing All-Americans. We're producing NFL draft picks from our offensive line. I expect them to redo most of these numbers. I really do. I'm going to take Evan, for example, for last season. Pro Football Focus gave him an 82.8 ranking, which for those of you who don't know, Pro Football Focus is a metric analyst group that rates the play of every position on the field and gives them rankings. Now, obviously, the higher up you go, the better the score. So Evan got an 82.8, which was the highest of all Big 12 guards, which, for those of you who remember, that's why he's rated the highest on the new football game. And he was sixth nationally with that ranking out of all guards in college football. I do expect big things from him. I expect him to be the top guard in the country. What does that mean? It means he's winning the pass blocking battles. He's not letting guys get through. And on run blocks, he's moving out, hitting his blocks, and getting downfield. Running backs last season were averaging 4.8 to 7.1 yards a carry. Now remember, we kind of do a bit of a running back by committee. So you got other guys taking handoffs, things like that. But even still, 4.8 to 7.1 yards, depending on what running back, that's solid. If you're that's a first down every 3 plays. If you're running the football consistently, you're moving the football downfield. So I love seeing that stat as a line coach, as a former lineman, as a fan of linemen. I think that is an absolute amazing piece of info right there, that we were really able to run the football, but obviously that didn't translate to the win-loss record. So what does that mean? Well, UC might have been playing from behind quite a bit. They weren't able to, people were keying on the pass or the run. Even though those numbers are high, the record doesn't reflect it. Usually when you're running the football that consistently, you're winning games. So, we had a great start to the season with it, and we just tapered off at the end, which is why that stat still remains that high. I'm not sure. It's an interesting dynamic with this, but I love good offensive line and defensive line play, but we're just kind of talking offensive line right now. Big key to watch this season is watching how the offensive line does, protecting French at the quarterback position, helping the run game, and taking some pressure off these new guys coming in like French and Zacharias. Had a stroke there. So one big key to watch this season, make sure you pay attention to the linemen. And hey, linemen are people too. Take care of them, support them. If you ever see a lineman in public, go talk to them. Linemen have the best personalities. They're the coolest guys. You'll absolutely have a blast. Quarterbacks and all the other guys, they get kind of stuffy, nose in the air, because they're all pretty boy stuff. Offensive linemen, where it's at, folks. Just not biased or anything. But we're going to continue now with our GOAT teams from UC that never won a championship. And coming in at number 3, of course, we got to go post-COVID, our 2020-2021 Peach Bowl football team that wound up losing to Georgia in the Peach Bowl on a last-second field goal. A lot of people may not even remember this, and I hope you don't, because it's kind of painful, but I'm going to bring it up anyway. Trauma. UC was up double digits in this game in the second half and wound up losing. That Cincy curse just came and bit us right in the tail. Really just kind of a disappointment end of the season. Last second field goal. Absolutely had the game in hand, well on their way. and something just happened at the end. But with that being said, it was still an amazing season for UC coming back out of COVID. 9-0 in the regular season, 6-0 in the American Athletic Conference. Tore it apart, handled business, got it done, got to play in a New Year's Day bowl game against an SEC. At the time, Georgia was on there, was, at their peak with that team moving, and UC was handling business. They finished 8th in the AP poll and the coaches poll that year. Some interesting little numbers for that season. They were scoring 37.5 points per game, which was good for 17th in all of FBS. They were only allowing 16.8 points a game, which was good for 8th in the FBS. So complementary football, both sides of the ball were getting it done. And as you'll see, and we talked about it last season with Texas Tech in terms of statistical rankings on defense, you got to have both sides of the football to get this deep into college season and get that high in the rankings. And that was definitely a season where UC was doing both. 100%. They had guys like Desmond Ritter, Jerome Ford, Josh Wiley, Alec Pierce, Kobe Bryant, Ahmad Gardner at the time, which, Sauce. He was Ahmad Gardner then. You had James Wiggins. It was a great team. And a young team, too, which is, I think, something that we don't take for granted a lot, is just how young that team really was. Most of them still had a year of eligibility. And it really was I think, a benefit to gain that experience in those big games and understanding what it takes to play at that level. And I say that because our next team is going to be the 2021-2022 UC football team that took us to the Sugar Bowl and broke the history-making time of a group of 5 making the college football playoff. And I know you're thinking, it's kind of the same team. Why are you including them, blah, blah, blah. Look, it's a different season. Things change in the off season. They really do. It's never the exact same. There's always little minutiae. Players get better. Some players might take a step back. There might be changes of positions. It's not cheating, I swear. But in this season, UC football goes back-to-back American Athletic Conference championships. 13-0 in the regular season. They were averaging 36.9 points per game, which you're thinking, hey, that's less than the last season. But they ranked 11th overall in FBS. We saw a bit of an uptick in defense coming back out of COVID, getting back into regular football in 2021 and 2022. They were still giving up only 16.9 points per game. So the defense was still there. We returned, I want to say it was 67% or more of snaps from that previous season on defense. That defense was loaded. One of the best defenses I think UC's ever had. It was so much fun to watch that team play. But they were giving up 16.9 points per game. That was good for 5th overall in FBS. Top 5. And we're playing in the college football playoff for a reason. Complementary football. 11th on offense, 5th on defense. Just tearing them up on defense. You had Deshaun Pace in the secondary. He had 4 INTs during that season. A lot of pass breakups. They were just all over the field with run stop and taking away the pass. It was absolutely incredible to watch. One of the more fun defensive battles getting to watch them play. And then, of course, 8-0 in the American Athletic, back-to-back championships. We all remember them on TV, Desmond Ritter holding the trophy after the championship game at Nippert, all the celebration. The field was absolutely packed with students and fans, just a massive celebration. Everybody knew what was coming. We just had to hope that the experts would allow it and put us into the college football playoff, and they did. And they would go on to play Alabama in the Sugar Bowl, in what I consider to be the biggest game in Bearcats history. I'm going even above, our basketball national championships. Football did win a championship years and years and years and years ago. I don't even think our parents were alive at that point. So, yes, they had those, but this was the absolute pinnacle of UC football at this point, going to play Alabama in the Sugar Bowl. And I was not disappointed with how they played. I remember where I was. I hope you all remember where you were watching that game. I was at a Twin Peaks with guys from work watching the game. And, throughout the game, you got to remember watching this, UC was in it a majority of the game. The score is not very telling of how close that game actually was. UC got tired by near the end of the third quarter, going into the fourth. The size and strength and speed of Alabama and those Power 4 teams just kind of took over. It really is such a different dynamic from when at the time the American Athletic Conference to the absolute, cream of the crop of the SEC in Alabama. There was nothing about it that you look at them and think, oh, this isn't the best that they have to offer. I'm sorry. That was the year that I think that we played the best team in college football. And the UC handled their own. The experience from Georgia paid off. They took care of the football. Just unfortunately, Alabama was that good. Their defense was that tough, and they were able to beat us. It was no slouch at all on this team. But unfortunately, it just didn't get done that day. But definitely well worth the second place GOAT team for UC in this ranking. Now, obviously, tomorrow's Friday. We're going to come back with the number one team that I think of all time of UC is. And I'm pretty sure everyone knows where I'll be going with this. So please put your predictions in the comments. If you haven't already, hit that like and subscribe button. And we'll be back for Red Friday tomorrow. Appreciate y'all tuning in.